Today we are drawing another photo reference of Nicole Byer. Nicole Byer is a comedian, I believe. I've never actually seen any of her comedy. What I have seen is her presenting Nailed It, which is a great show. And also I've picked her on day 10 because she is, in my mind, a perfect 10. She's gorgeous. Look at her. Yeah. So, oh god, I just realised I'm going to snitch tag people into this. So, if she watches the, she's not going to watch the video. I don't have to worry about her thinking I'm some sort of creep. But yeah, ideal woman. Again, like yesterday's, there's very little actual face contour in this. It's mostly hair shape. So I'm gonna make a slight difference to how I normally draw these things. Ordinarily, I would start with a head base and work out to like where the face parts go. Today, I'm going to start with a hair base and I'm going to inset the face into it so that I can capture the entire head. Which I think, actually, is that a good idea, or would I be better off just doing the head? It's just doing the face and having the hair go. No, I want to capture the whole lot because I was really disappointed yesterday how I ended up going off the page. So, yeah. So it's kind of, it's got a sort of almost straight edge here to a kind of curved angle like so, and kind of round here. It is wider than it is tall, isn't it? Yeah, so the hair is kind of this shape. Higher there. That is maybe a little touch lower there. So it kind of curls down here a little bit. I'm not going to capture too much detail in this for now. So then we have the cheek that comes up here. And there's almost like a sort of parting here. So if we say it's roughly thirds but not quite. So if the face is kind of in this space inside it, I think that about fits. So the face is there. So this will come down to about here where the parting is. So you've got kind of that space. This has a sort of slope in that direction. So this is kind of just a guiding shape of how things are going to go. And the face would come down, and that literally just continues straight from there to a chin. This means that the face itself is going to be considerably smaller than previous ones that I've done. So maybe that means it'll be better because there'll be less space to make mistakes, or maybe it means it'll be worse because the scale of my mistakes will be comparatively larger. So I know there's not actually a visible sort of parting line there, but this has a kind of about just a little bit less than a fifth of the way down. It kind of comes in for the eye line. This eyelet here. Oh, today's relaxation sounds are a storm in the mountains. So yeah, this is not. You see, this isn't really a profile. This is the shape of the hair. So this is, it's not like she's got a lumpy head or something. It's just the way that the hair frames it, frames the face. There's kind of that there comes out. That's actually too larger. And then you have the cheek here, and that is face shaped, that cheek. So this gives us a starting point for the eye. Now there's this single curl of hair which kind of comes down here, and I can kind of use that as a guideline. I know that I'm trying to get things without doing like, measuring individual parts of where bits of this specific image go. I noticed that the eye line is slightly elevated. It's like this eye is slightly higher than the other one because of the tilt of her head. So I'm going to try and capture that. And where this curve comes down and comes in here, it's this point, kind of here, where it meets up with... You know what, I moved that curve down because I thought it was going to be on the other edge of it, but in fact that curve was in exactly the right place. Come down here and then go there. So the eye line is kind of there, because it's a very subtle rise of the face there, and it splits almost exactly in 3 for the spacing of it. There's a wonderful curve to this eye. It sort of comes down a little lower than it starts. But the great thing about it is that's just one nice, and because of the eyeliner as well, it's a very strong curve that kind of comes in like this. It's actually a thing that I've noticed, is that I draw eyes too large. Like this eye is already taller than it should be compared to the... Because what I've drawn there is the top line, and there's an inner line as well, which kind of has an inner curve there. So that's kind of the whole eye is that area. And then we have a similar curve here. It's got a bit more of a wing there. I feel like they probably both have the same little wing here, but obviously you can only see it on one of them because this one kind of merges in with the shade on the hair. And again, it's flat and goes up, and this one starts flat and then goes down. So it's kind of that shape. And the same thing here. I feel like that's too high. I've tricked myself into making that go really high when it shouldn't be that high. It should be about there. And this actually does come down a little bit to meet it. So it's more like that is the wing. And you've got your inner eyelid. And again, very strong definition on the pupil there. I love this kind of shine in the light in the eye, that you've got this kind of double thing going on there. Now, the brows, very faint. Obviously I have to draw them in, but I'm going to do them very, very faint as I do this. It's got a kind of arch to it there. I'm going to start bringing an actual eraser because I'm running out of eraser on the end of my pencil. So the brow sort of starts there-ish, comes up and then thins out with the arch. And this one starts about here. And the arch comes down quite firmly there, so it's up to there and then down to there, kind of this shape. Right, so I'm not going to draw in the whole eye, but I am going to just make sure the whole eye is in the sketch, so that the nose comes down like this, and it's, you see that you can kind of make out the bridge, but it's not as pronounced as the other sort of nose bridges that I've drawn. You know, there's no beating around the bush. You know, Nicole Byer is a black American, meaning slightly different facial shape than the European faces that I'm used to drawing. This is good. I'm trying to decolonize my art, as it were. I think that's the word for it. Being a completely white person, I'm never 100% au fait on the linguistic terminology behind trying to basically de-racist myself, because there's inherent racism in pretty much everything that white people do, and we can't, I say we can't help it, we can help it, but we have to try. You know, you can't just say, well, I'm not prejudiced, so that's fine, right? No, you gotta help undo this shit. You can't just not be part of it, because you know you're part of it just by existing. Anyway, that's my soapbox for the day. I've not actually attempted the shape of the nose yet because I want to make sure I kind of get it in the right spatial shape for the... See, I've drawn that too long. I have this tendency to elongate things. Have I drawn the bridge of the nose too long there? I think I may have done. I think that perhaps that top edge of the nose needs to go more like there. It's... Or have I now shortened it too much? That kind of curve there is there. And this has this... See, it has this curve that sort of comes all the way down to the edge of the mouth. Now, I'm not going to do that in the ink, obviously, but it's a really useful guiding line to capture that shape. So the nose kind of has this curve to it. It sort of flattens out, like that's a horizontal line. Like normally I would arch up for a nostril, but that's practically horizontal. This one maybe comes up a little, like so. There's a bit of shade under there. Is that too wide? You see, the terrible thing is, being a bad artist, I know that I am highly likely to accidentally slip into drawing something which would be considered like a stereotype, which I really don't want to do for obvious reasons. And I know that if I even slightly exaggerate any of the features in this image, it may be considered, you know, just the worst, basically. Just the worst thing that an artist can do is not to make art which is bad, but to make art which is, like, I don't want to use the word offensive, because obviously, you know, that's a very heavily loaded term, but like art which is just hurtful, really, just not nice for anyone. So there's this sort of chin line here. Now, the reason I love this image is because the lips make a fantastic, like I've always had this difficulty drawing lips, and this has that archway that I talk about a lot. So if you get the exact center point of the nose, which now that I think about it, I've seen why this looks too wide. It's because I'm attempting to make it symmetrical, and of course her head is turned slightly to one side, so that one is slightly wider than the other side, which is why this has a shape that comes up here, and that is ever so slightly to one side. So you have this very it's definitely a smiling mouth, but it's almost like, you know, when you think of it, I'm going to go up and do a little sketchy thing up in this corner. When you think of a smiling mouth, you think of this shape, right? But actually, when you see mouths that are smiling in real life, they tend to have a more kind of, it's almost like it's almost flat there, and then there's a little curve there, and then you have, you know, lip, and so it's got this kind of, the top virtually never curls up like that. It's, if you actually try and like photo manipulate a face to have that big curly smile, it doesn't work. Like, that does not look right on a human face at all. What you get is these sort of almost subtle, and then you have the actual inner edge of the lip. It really helps that she's wearing a nice strong colour of lipstick, because ordinarily I draw too many lines around the mouth. If the lips aren't clearly defined, I try to clearly define them, and quite often that looks terrible if you're doing it needlessly. Oh, that is great. I am super pleased with that curl. I think I've almost given her like too much smile there. It's a slightly more demure smile than that. It's a slightly shallower smile. Oh, that's terrible. See, I did it perfect with one line, and then in an attempt to get it right, yeah, that's better. That is a better curve. And then this kind of comes in here, almost kind of, it sort of has a kind of roundness, but then it sharply curves up here to meet there. I don't want to pronounce the chin too much, because as someone who has quite the prominent kind of crease around the chin myself, too much of that it looks bad, because it looks like a double chin, which of course she doesn't have. She's got, well, as I've said many times, to almost an embarrassing degree, she is absolutely gorgeous, you know. So I want to try and capture that. That's one of the reasons I challenge myself to do this, is I wanted to draw someone who actually looks good, because a lot of the other pictures I've chosen, they do have this kind of almost disheveled appearance, and that's by design, because I feel like I'm better at drawing people who are, you know, they look a little bit fucked, because I look a little bit fucked most of the time. Yeah, I'm quite pleased with that. I think that I might be ready to go to the ink. I need to decide how much of the structure in this part of the face I'm going to draw, because so little of it is actually like, there's no hard lines, it's very soft, and because I'm not going to shade this one like I did yesterday, I feel like that actually does go higher than that. There's a kind of a cheek line there that I almost want. Do I want to capture that? I don't think I do. I think I want to just get it as is. You know, I've not done enough chin here. Thinking about it, that is, the distance from there to there is the same as the distance from there to there, but the distance from there to there is like half of that. So I need to add more of this chin space here, because the head does actually descend quite a way below the hair. This is what I mean when I say I'm a bad artist, by the way, because I recognise my biggest weakness is my inability to judge the kind of shape and space and relative sizes of things. Is my biggest weakness. And I know that if I could just fix that a little bit, most of the rest of the things that I do wrong would kind of vanish. And I think that doing this kind of exercise, working from photos, is a great way to do that. A little curl that comes out this way, there. I'm not going to be able to capture every individual hair. I'm just trying to get the overall shape of it. Like, I can see that there's this little kind of void there. There's this curl here comes a few loops near the top. There's a few here as well. It's quite a prominent, pronounced one there. It's got a kind of double loop effect going on. I don't want to do too many, because the thing about this, it's a wonderful natural look. Obviously there's some kind of product in there, but it's got a nice it's got a fantastic silhouette, but I know that if you extend it too far it could look messy, and it's not messy. It's just it is curly hair. That's the shape that curly hair takes. It's kind of, no, see, because that is not the right shape. Although yes, it is curls, the helixes never turn laterally. They do a kind of almost, and there's a bit here that sort of comes sort of like that. Right. Time to go to the ink and mess this up, which, like, I don't do it on purpose, it just happens. So I'm almost tempted to take a picture before I ink it, because I feel like I've done particularly well with this one on the pencil level. But that's not how I do this. It would be unfair to change that, you know, even though she deserves it, it'd be unfair to change the process just for this one model. So I'm going to start with the nose, because I feel like that's a great anchor for the centre of the face. And I also don't want to carry this line up as far as I've carried it up there. So I want to make sure that I nip that in the bud early on. Get this part here. Like so. And yeah, I know I'm generally, the mouth is like my weak point, but I'm going to go for that next. I'm actually going to turn the page this way to get that curve right, because it took so many attempts to get the pencils on it right. I don't want to mess up. And the teeth, you know, there's a tendency with teeth to draw too much, because if you outline every tooth, then you get this kind of, the teeth looks almost like rotted, because you don't normally see the outline of every tooth. As you look here, you can see that you only barely see a little bit of the sort of the gappage between them, just from the turn away. Now these eyes, this eyeline is fantastic, because it means that drawing with a black ink pen, I can really capture the sort of, ordinarily, you know, the lines of an eye are not very dark. The end result of which is that if you try to do them in a black pen, like if you try and do them with a thick Sharpie type marker, you end up I've done that too low, but I'm inking, so there's nothing I can do about it now. Yeah, I was saying, if you're inking with a black pen, with a thick black marker, unless a person is wearing eyeliner, their eyes don't have that kind of thick black line around them. And so it just looks wrong. Possibly my biggest takeaway from this entire process is that the worst thing you can do when drawing a face is put too much detail on, because it just looks bad. It just looks bad. Case in point, these eyebrows, they're quite faint eyebrows. They're very nicely not shaved, but they're trimmed eyebrows. So I don't want to do big long strokes, but they do have a kind of arch that I want to capture in. Yeah, and I do want to get some of the line of this chin, but not a lot of it. I feel like I only need the part here, and really only up to about there-ish. Yeah. And then obviously the contour of the face. And that's where the actual contour of the face begins. Single smooth curve, and again, this kind of comes under here and up to there, and that's immediately where the... So you can actually see that a little bit of the face just up to that point, but then the hair takes over. And you get this curly part here. And that comes across like so. Now, I want to get a little bit of eyelash on this. Not too much. There's a little bit. And a tiny amount here. Yeah. Oh, I'm feeling really good about this face so far. This feels like a day in which I have made an improvement upon my technique. I won't know for certain until I've erased the pencil marks, but... See, there's a little... Oh, it's so tempting to add just a little line there and there for the brow, just one here and one kind of here-ish. Oh. No, leave it for now, leave it for now. So there's... The actual kind of infill of this hair has patches of like directionality, like swathes of it, and I feel like that's going to be the best way to fill this in. I can't capture all of it exactly, but if I get the right feel to it, if I get the right kind of, you know, some parts are curling one way, some parts are curling another, and kind of intermingle them and kind of capture the coils almost as a texture more than as an actual simulacrum of what's going on. How's my time doing? Half an hour. I'm not doing bad for this one. Not doing bad. There's a little swing under here. That's the thing, even though I am only capturing texture, in the areas where it's sort of connecting to these bits of these little outcrops and things, it needs to follow from it, so I can't just use it like a hairline like I would normally do. I actually have to feed into this. These have to come together. Into a kind of yeah, I'm liking that. I'm liking that. Let's get a bit of. There's one. If we can get this into sections here and here. And some of these kind of, they almost come away at like an angle, because it's different overlaid curls curling in different sort of, like you see this almost here looks like a kind of back and forth, because a combination of some parts curling one way and some parts curling the other, and that's the feeling that I want to get for it. I'm never going to capture individual coils, but I can give the impression of coils by curving in different directions. I watched that there's a documentary about essentially the industry behind the hair of African American women. I think it's just called Hair or Good Hair, and it's I think Chris Rock was involved in it. Like he directed it or wrote part of it or something. And it's fascinating the amount of scrutiny that is placed upon like the hair of dark-skinned women in America. It's just like it's like a whole thing over there. I mean, maybe it is here as well. I haven't seen a British version of the documentary. But there's like a whole thing over there about sort of a cultural context to wigs and to dreadlocks, which is the thing that I was learning about just today, actually, that a lot of white people, they take on dreadlocks as an affectation. You're getting some education here. You know, it's kind of a culturally appropriative thing that you get white people that will wear their hair in dreadlocks because they think it looks cool. But the difference in the kind of the cell structure in the hairs is, if you have this kind of, you know, naturally very densely curly hair, then dreadlocks will just form. They will lock together as curls. That's why they're called dreadlocks, because they lock together. Whereas if you don't have that kind of hair and you try and form dreadlocks, what you actually get is essentially matting. Your hair mats together, usually with sort of, you know, grease and grime. And there was a video doing the rounds just today of someone cutting out dreadlocks from their hair. some white guy cutting out the dreadlocks of his hair. I think he was a white guy. I don't know, I can't remember. But he definitely wasn't, you know, he had no African or Jamaican heritage. He was not dark-skinned. And you could immediately tell, like, just the centre of the dreadlock was just filled up with bits of dried dandruff and skin, and it was really quite gross. And it's like that's what happens when you try and, you know, mimic something from another culture, is that you get it wrong because you don't understand it. It does make me wonder, actually, because there is an issue that a lot of white people think that dreadlocks, like I'm talking like stuffy formal white people, I suppose happens a lot, but you hear about it in schools specifically, which is why it comes to mind as stuffy people, because it tends to be teachers and, you know, head teachers, administrators who enforce these rules. Or they think that, you know, dreadlocks are unclean or they're dirty, or and they think it's not very nice hair. And I do wonder if that's because at some point in the past they have, I mean, it's racism, let's face it, it's racism, but the whole thing about it being unclean, it makes you wonder if they've attempted to have dreadlocks at some point in the past, and with not having the densely curled hair that you would need to get a proper actually, some of these curls almost curl upwards near the top here. I'm doing the underside curls, but actually near the top here it curls down, doesn't it? Of course it would, because of the 3D shape of the hair. Get it right, Stace. So, like, you know, maybe at some point in the past it makes you wonder if some of them have attempted to have dreadlocks, or if like one of their kids has had dreadlocks, and when they've cut them out, they've seen all this, you know, horrible dead skin inside, and they're like, ugh, and they think that, like, that's how it is for everyone, because they just don't get it. You know, multiculturalism is one thing, but stay in your lane, you know. I think a lot of people think I'm one of these, I don't know, in many ways I am. I think I'm one of these lefty liberals, and I should stop trying to, you know, destroy everyone else's fun as they attempt to steal bits of other cultures. I mean, you know, one thing that the people say is it's not my place to police it, but, and I suppose in that sense they're right, it isn't. But you know what, I can try and support the voices of those for whom it is important. You know, it's there are only 2 curls there, and I've accidentally drawn 3, so this is already very unrealistic. I am cancelled. When I'm doing textured areas like this, the temptation is to get sloppy, and you start accidentally doing straight lines instead of curved lines, and you get close to the boundaries of things, and you almost like straight across into places where it definitely shouldn't go. And when you do that, it's not good. So I'm trying to keep my head in the game. So close to having this be my best work yet. You know, there were a few days there, I think I mentioned it on the Twitters and on the Instagrams. There were a couple of days when, day 4 in particular, but no, was it day 4? No, it was profile day 6. I had a little cry after I finished that one, because I was so disappointed. I knew that the art I was going to turn out in the early weeks, or in the first week, in the early days, I knew it was going to be bad, but I think I wasn't prepared for how bad it was going to be. And when I turfed out that terrible image on day 6, I just wanted to give up. I really did just want to absolutely pack the whole thing in and say, I'm not going to do this anymore. But like I said on day 7, it's all about failing and getting better. I think it was Adventure Time. Yeah, it was Adventure Time, which had the line, sucking at something is the first stage toward being kind of okay at something. And it's not that, I mean, you know, you have to suck at something to be any good at it. That much I agree with. But I think there's a little more to it than just you suck and then you're good. You have to embrace the suck. You have to be willing to look at your work and say, that's terrible, and I'm going to keep doing it. Not because you want to keep making it terrible. Obviously you don't want that. But because you know it has to go through a period of being terrible. And you have to be willing to keep producing terrible work until the point when it's not terrible. Because one response to producing terrible work is to simply give up. And if you simply give up, then all you have is the terrible work, never the good work. This is the point when I look at the two images and I say, where can I fix and improve? I feel like that needs a bit more curve there. There's not much I can do to fix that though. I did that as a sketch line. That shouldn't be a sketch line, that should be that is the neckline of this garment. And there's another one just here where this bit of hair meets. And then you have, just after this curl here, a collar, notched. Notches at the wrong angle, but this is really just finishing off now. You know that shoulder comes up, it's too late. You know, I think I'm done. It's time to step away from the pen, erase the pencil lines, and see if what's left works without them. I might need to add a line here, because without it, it seems kind of empty. Yeah, you see the nose without that line, it needs just a faintest line there. A little more. Not sure about that, but I've added it now, so my mouths never look as expressive as the real thing. They always look slightly awkward, like she's making this gorgeous, like nice, it's a taut smile, and mine just looks kind of lazy, like almost like a grimace. Why can I never get the I feel like I've not textured this area of the hair enough. Maybe a few more little loops up here as well. Just... oh, I nearly did it again. I nearly did that thing where you accidentally lower the pen on an area that it shouldn't be. There was that kind of double loop thing going on there, wasn't there? And here there's a few areas where it kind of has... I'm going to call that done. I'm pleased with that. That is a good image. I think that you can look at that and you can kind of tell that it is maybe possibly Nicole Byer. Almost. Yeah. Happy with that. Actually, I still got a pencil to erase around the lips. Going to let you in on a little secret just while I'm finishing this one up. Yesterday's picture, I did actually, when I uploaded the image, I did go in and edit off that additional extra line, that accidental line from where I dropped the pen on the page. I showed it in the video, but in the actual image that I uploaded, I'd taken it off and I'd taken it out and gotten rid of it. Yes. See you again tomorrow.